Hello, fellow horror fiends, and welcome to The Horror Within Me, a podcast dedicated to the world of horror. Join us each week as our host explores a new, horrifying topic from the many realms of horror, such as film, television, and more, and returns to tell us his terrifying revelations. So sit back, relax, and get ready to face the horrors within.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Horror Within Me. It's me, your host, Eric, and it's time for another spooky Sunday together. This week's episode, we're going to be doing my top 5 characters in horror movies who I think should have survived. Short, sweet, simple. I say that every week, and it usually is. I'm very passionate about this topic. I have discussions about it with my husband, who knows nothing about horror like the way I do, so I'm just pretty much running my mouth to the wind. So I've decided, you know what? I'm going to make an episode about it. I'm going to share it with all of you because I understand that you understand the passion behind it. So before we start with the top 5, we're going to jump right into this week's terrifying trivia question. It's a multiple choice and it has something to do with one of the people. I won't say when or what number they are, but let's knock out this week's terrifying trivia question. So this week's terrifying trivia question is a multiple choice. Yay, I thought it'd be super fun to do that. And the question is, what weapon was used to kill Rachel in Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers? Was it A, a butcher knife, B, a pair of scissors, C, a dog leash, or D, a shard of glass? I will give you the answer at the end of the episode, so stick around to find out if you were right or if you were wrong. All right. It's going to take a little bit of time. There's not a lot of notes on here. I'm looking at my screen. It is like half a page of episode notes because a lot of this is my opinion. And I'm just going to jump right into the number 5 spot on the first character. So coming in number 5 is Jenna from Friday the 13th remake. If you listen to my podcast, most of the people on this list you probably heard me mention before, but I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth on why I think that they should not have been killed off or that they should have survived in the entire movie. So Jenna from Friday the 13th remake was the final girl in the movie. I know a lot of people think it was Whitney, Clay's sister, and Clay being the final boy, and the sibling dynamic. But honestly, I really think, and I know a lot of other people feel the same way, is that Jenna really should have survived. They did my girl dirty, and the way they did it, I mentioned this in my Friday the 13th remake episode, was tacky. You were tacky people. They killed her going as last through the tunnels, trying to escape after they saved Whitney. I thought that was like, first of all, again, I'm going to repeat myself, Clay, why are you not letting the ladies go first? You were there to be protecting them, that quote unquote, you're helping them. Why are you not going first or letting them go first? And she is killed with a machete shoved through her back, through her chest, through her heart, and blah, 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 blah. And Clay looks so shocked, but it should have been you. How I think they should have done it instead, which for me would have been more creative. She seemed, I guess they were trying to give like this value back then of, she seemed like a final girl. She was in it. She was wholesome. The girl next door, everything that we come to know about final girls, and then they kill her. So they get this shock value. We could have gotten the same shock value if in the beginning we thought Whitney was dead. And then we come to find out that Whitney wasn't dead. She was chained up in the basement. And because she had found Jason's mother's locket and was wearing it, so he associated and thought they looked together. So he kept his mother hostage. I don't know. But I think what would have been more shock is if Jason would have killed Whitney through the tunnels because she was escaping, and then we don't think that he's going to kill her because he didn't kill her the first time, but this time he realized it's not mommy and he kills her, and Jenna ends up surviving and being the final girl. Because it would have been so fucked up the whole movie that, Clay's looking for her sister. He finds her alive just for her to end up being killed anyway. I think that's how that should have went. Let me know if you agree with that or not. Moving forward, Coming in at number 4. Okay. Number 4 is Dewey Riley from Scream. Everybody knows Dewey. He is like such one of the most lovable characters, in my opinion, in any horror franchise. And what they did to his character in the latest Scream, where it was just titled Scream, but it's the 5th entry in the movie, in the franchise, was a disgrace. I'm okay with, you know, legacy characters being killed off because realistically, you're back in every movie. The chances are slimmer and slimmer that you're going to survive, or now we just don't have any anticipation of them dying. So that wasn't my full issue, but it was the character assassination of Dewey that really drove the nail into the coffin for me. He was the sheriff in Scream 4. Him and Gail were married. They were doing whatever. She had her problems with small town life, whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. We find him in the newest one, living in a trailer, kind of an alcoholic, not the sheriff, very just like down on his luck, and then is killed by a teenage girl in a hospital, making a mistake that Dewey would never have made in Scream movies. So, like, I don't know why they thought, let's kill Dewey, but let's do it that way. I mean, if anything, he deserved a more heroic send off, like saving Gail's life in the final act at Stu's house, or something that would have just been, if they're going to kill him, do it that way. But I don't think he should have been killed because I think that his character staying in Woodsboro, Sydney has moved on, Gail has moved on. His character there could have been the Scream version of a Loomis, in a sense where he could have been the person as they went to for help, but he wouldn't have made the stupid mistakes that he made. So they tried it and they failed. I was very disappointed in the way that his whole character arc went and how they ended him in the last Scream, and it was just a travesty and a disgrace in my opinion. And he should have survived all of Scream and been there with Sydney and Gail at the end, all the way through, because that's what we want to see. We want to see Dewey, and it wasn't there for me. The new characters, in my opinion, I don't know if it's a generation thing, they're okay. They're okay. And, we have the first ever teaser trailer for Scream 6 that just came out, and it's a minute long, and we see the new characters returning in New York City, and we know that Nev Campbell's not coming back, and we know that Gail's going to be in it, Courtney Cox will be in it, and that Hayden Panettiere is going to be in it from Scream 4. And I'm just so nervous. This is a little sidebar before I continue on. I'm so nervous on how they're going to do the new Scream, because I feel like one, it is just flying out the following year. What is your storyline? There's a photo of the Ghostface mask that kind of gives the Halloween 2018 Michael Myers mask. But the thing is, please, 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 I know that people have been asking for Stu to come back. Stu cannot come back in this entry without Sydney. It makes zero sense for him to target the new group of victims or new group of survivors and not the people that did what they did to him before. It makes zero sense. I hope that's not what they do. I really hope it's just somebody that like broke into, the evidence locker and took the mask or something else. I don't know. Maybe it's Sam. And is she still going to be seeing Billy? We don't know. But moving on, Dewey deserved much, much better and deserved to live, even if he wasn't going to reprise his role in Scream 6. It just the way that he was handled is why he made this list. And you're probably wondering, if Dewey's number 4, what the hell are the other 3? And I'd like to preface again that this is my list, not yours. But coming in at number 3 on top characters, this one was rough for me. And it goes back to the terrifying trivia question. Number 3 is Rachel Carruthers from Halloween 5. I have a lot to talk about with this one. So before we can talk about this, we're going to hurry up now fast forward, and we're going to answer terrifying trivia. I know I said stick around to the end of the episode, but we have to answer it now in order to actually discuss Rachel from Halloween 5. So the question was, what weapon was used to kill Rachel in Halloween 5? And the multiple choice questions were A, a butcher knife, B, a pair of scissors, C, a dog leash, or D, a shard of glass. And the answer is B, a pair of scissors. So I thought it was fun to put a dog leash in there. Can you imagine if he strangled her with Max's leash or something? That would just, she could have do whatever they wanted at this point. So fans of the franchise know exactly what I'm talking about when I am upset that Rachel didn't survive. If you had seen Halloween 4, Rachel and Jamie were a pair of final girls. Rachel being the older foster sister to Jamie's character and the protector of her. I understand taking her away, but there was no real need to kill off Rachel within the daytime in the way that they killed her, being home alone in just a sweater after the shower, and he stabs her with a pair of scissors in the chest, and that's it. There was no need to kill her that way when you brought and introduced the character of Tina, because Tina was meant to replace Rachel as the protector, but also just didn't do what the dynamic was in Halloween 4, and it was a bad move on the creator's part. It was a very bad move. And I think I read somewhere that the people that were the writers and the people that decided to kill the character ultimately regretted making that decision and knew that it wasn't the right decision to make for that movie. Audiences went back because they both survived. We knew it was going to be a year later. We saw them being featured in it together. We would have loved to have seen it again. And I'm going to take a note from the Dewey chapter. If you were going to kill Rachel, it should have been in a way protecting Jamie the way that Tina died protecting Jamie. A sacrificial death. She deserved so much more than a surprise attack with a pair of fucking scissors to the chest during the daylight of Halloween. Like, she didn't get any real character time. And I feel it was really bad for the actress and really bad for the character because everyone grew to really, really, really love and root for Rachel and Jamie. And if you were going to kill Rachel, it should have been the way that you did it with Tina. And Tina could have been the one that got killed beginning in the house. Instead, let's say Rachel decided she was going to go with the parents, and then halfway there she realized, not halfway, but no, on the way she decides, you know what, I have a feeling I'm not going to go, and turns around. But in that time, Tina's already at the house taking care of Max and ends up being the victim instead. I would have been okay with that. Nothing against the actress of Tina. Her character was whatever. She was written very heavily into it with the other teenagers, which the other teenagers being Rachel's friends had no connection to Jamie for me. Like, the connection was missing, and I really just wasn't feeling it. And we needed more Rachel, and I believe she should not have been killed off in Halloween 5, and at least she should have survived to the end with Jamie, because that would have been something different instead of doing the same thing over and over again in the same fashion of horror movies where you don't survive the sequel. It was just known, but they didn't kill Jamie because she was like 9 years old, and they weren't killing a child back then. There was like a scene where Jamie was climbing the vent or the laundry chute, and she gets stabbed in the leg, and apparently you could see that in the original cut, but they thought it was too graphic to see a child be stabbed, so they just cut it out. But you could see that her leg is stabbed at some point. So they definitely weren't going to kill her in that one. And don't get me started on the what they did with her in Halloween 6, because it's nothing to do with that. With this episode. But Rachel deserved better. She deserved to have a fighting chance and to at least survive the end of Halloween 5. It would have been nice if they would have pulled like an Alice from Nightmares 4 and 5, where she just survived all of them and didn't die. Maybe she just survived. Would have been nice to see something different done, but that's not the case, and she ended up being killed very early on in the movie. So that leads us to my number 2 spot. Okay. Number 2 is a big one for me. Obviously, it's number 2. Coming in at number 2 is Nancy Thompson from A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, I specifically picked, Nancy Thompson is also from the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first entry as the heroine, the final girl that makes it to the end. So I'm going to pick the third one because that's the one she gets killed off in. Now, what is different between Nancy returning and Rachel returning is that Nancy does make it to the end of the movie. She was written in to the movie very well, I think. She was a grad student. She was on Hypnosil. She was trying to help the patients at the psychiatric hospital face Freddy because she had faced in one before. What was upsetting is just the fact that she didn't survive. I really don't have any negative feedback on the way they killed Nancy because they did it with a way that made sense in the story and to the character. Freddy knew that she was a worthy adversary, that Freddy knew that she was not stupid, that she was a smart, his nemesis. So after killing Nancy's father at the junkyard in his bone form, he knew that he could present himself as this, and he presented himself as Nancy's father, saying that he had passed away after they think they killed him, to get her close enough to fatally wound her. And I think that shows respect to the character. It was a very sad death. I thought even saving Kristen before and stabbing Freddy and helping, Neil simultaneously, unknowingly, actually defeat Freddy was just amazing for the character, and the fact that she didn't make it was kind of realistic, and it wasn't far-fetched. It was just upsetting, and I would, as a fan of Nancy, would have loved her to have just survived and been able to move on and have a happy life like Sidney Prescott. Because these final girls, they all kind of tie in. Sidney, people are upset that Neve Campbell's not going to be in the new Scream, and I'm upset with the reason why she's not going to be in the new Scream. But I'm not upset that Sidney doesn't have a chance to be murdered in my eye, unless they kill her off screen, which would be even fucking worse. But Sidney has a family; she's moving on. I think we should let that character go. Let her live her happy life. And I wish we could have gotten the same for Nancy, but unfortunately we didn't. And I really did like the character of Kristen Parker. I loved Patricia Arquette's portrayal of Kristen in A Nightmare 3. And Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is probably I've always loved the original. The first one is my favorite, and then 3, and then 4. It is just, I love the creativity. I love the addition to the story. I like I like everything about it. And I think that Nancy should have survived as a fan of Nancy, but I wasn't upset on how they killed her the way that I was upset with the previous entries. But before I reveal my number one, I do have 2 honorable mentions I want to discuss. So the first honorable mention that I want to discuss on who I think should have survived is Randy from Scream. Randy died in the sequel to Scream. He was such another lovable character, right? I think, Randy was the geek movie guy that never got the girl, who was the go-to person to try to understand the motives and everything about the killer. And I think it's awesome that the new kids in the new one are Randy's niece and nephew, and they're mixed and biracial, and I love everything about that. My niece and nephews are biracial. I love inclusion, but I think Randy should have survived. Jamie Kennedy could still be in the franchise as well. I know we want all these characters to stay alive and they don't die, but I don't know if Randy was the right choice to have killed in the second one. If anything, I know this is going to be controversial to what I said, I could have seen Dewey dying in the sequel and Randy surviving the following is a legacy character because Louis, Jesus Christ, Dewey survived that attack at the end of 1, and we're like, oh my god, there he is. And then they did the same thing at 2, where like, oh, he's still alive again. If they would have just been like, oh, he didn't survive this time, but like Randy did, but he didn't, and I'm upset about it, but not as upset. And he didn't. He's an honorable mention, but he just couldn't quite make the top 5 for me. The next person I want to talk about almost made the top 5 for me. And the reason that they didn't, I'll explain. But my last honorable mention, my second honorable mention, and last honorable mention is Karen Strode from the new Halloween trilogy. In Halloween Kills, at the very, very end of Halloween Kills, Karen makes a conscious decision to go into the Myers house, go upstairs and stare out of Judith's old bedroom window, where Michael appears behind her and viciously kills her in what reminds me of both a stabbing scene from Janet Leigh in Psycho, as well as Judith Myers in the original Halloween. Gave me that vibe very, very much. And I had a feeling that it was going to be Karen. I knew that either all 3 were going to continue to live in all 3 movies, or if one had to go, it could only be Karen. And so I had an idea, and it did shock me because I didn't expect it to be the final like seconds of the movie that she was going to be killed in. I thought she survived. And then I was like a little concerned, obviously, when she was going up the stairs, and I'm like, what the hell? Because he got up, and I'm like, no. And like, it's coming. This is why I think she should have survived. I'm going to be very honest. If you've listened to my Halloween reviews, Halloween Ends would have been a good middle entry, not the final entry in the movie. Ending Halloween Kills on killing off a main character who is Laurie Strode's daughter, and then picking up 4 years later and not giving us the Laurie Strode that we deserve, was a missed opportunity. Laurie and Allison lost Karen, and then 4 years later we have Laurie carving pumpkins, moving on, and being happy because she went to therapy. That's not what we wanted to see. We wanted to see Laurie go deeper in her hunt for Michael, because she had hunted him knowing he was locked up, knowing he got away after the last thing he did was kill her daughter, and then not play on that plot point seemed like a really poor decision to make. And at that point, Karen should have survived and just been in Halloween Ends in a lesser capacity, kind of like Lindsay's character, like kind of there, but not, how we could have just seen how all 3 of the women handled moving forward 4 years later after being attacked and facing Michael and surviving, and him escaping again for 4 years. I would have liked to have seen the 3 character developments more than I would have wanted than I wanted to see Corey being introduced and show us anything about him. I think Corey being introduced would have been okay if it was a side little storyline with Allison's character, if Karen and Laurie had other things happening with Michael. I think that was the missed opportunity, and I would have preferred to have seen that. But that doesn't mean to the point where I'm petitioning for the movie to be redone and all that crazy shit. Like, the creators are allowed to create whatever content they want and the way they want their vision to be, and I appreciate and respect that. This is just my thoughts and what I thought I would have liked to have seen. But that brings me into the number 1 spot. My number 1 character in a horror movie that I think should have survived is, if you probably already know if you know me, is Helen Shivers from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Not only because it was Sarah Michelle Gellar and my favorite person in the whole world, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was my all-time favorite show. I could watch it over. I have watched it over and over and over again. But aside from the fact that I fucking love her character of Helen, I've talked about this in the I Know What You Did Last Summer episode. It just made no sense. to kill her. She was our final girl. I mean, it made zero sense. I don't know why she wasn't the final girl. They could have gotten rid of like Julie. Julie to me, she just wasn't. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. Helen was resourceful. She was, she was a fan of television and movies and would pay attention to like what to do and what not to do. She had you can argue with me, probably the best and longest chase scene in a horror movie. Her chase scene is iconic, and I miss the days of chase scenes like that. She fought so hard and smart, like kicking out the police car with a heel. Like she was doing all the right things, jumping out of windows. And you mean to tell me she is feet away from a crowded parade street being chased by a fucking fisherman in a slicker with a hook after watching her ex-boyfriend get murdered, knowing that this man isn't just fucking with us anymore. Now he's gonna kill us, and he's killing the cop. Like, he's trying to kill you. You're gonna turn around to see if he's, because you heard a noise, or to see if he's following you. Like, I don't know what she turned around for, but it made zero sense. It made zero sense for the character. It will always be something that I fucking cannot grasp. She could have ran into the crowd and grabbed the first person she saw and be like, same thing she said to her sister, like, I'm being attacked. I'm being chased. There's a man trying to kill me. Get some people, like, grab their attention. Scream help. Start screaming help when you see people. It didn't make any sense. And I know it's the 90s and it was horror and we want that, that last little, shock values. But oh my God, the character assassinations that they do in these movies. Who is approving these? They're like, you know what? Yes. Good idea. No, what the fuck? It's not. It's not. It was never a good idea. And it came out in 1997 and we're still pissed off about it. I'm not the only one. I know I'm not. I see it on TikTok. Justice for fucking Helen. She should have been our final girl. I would have been okay if Julie would have died. Her screaming, she was helpless. She didn't really do anything. I don't know. She just really screaming, like when Ray opened it, screaming, like, shut the fuck up. If she would have died when she went to go back to Missy, and because why are you going alone now? Like, it made no sense. She would have went back and Missy was dead. Because, fucking why not? Why not? The fisherman went, just go and kill her. And he'd be at the house, have a little chase scene with Julie there and kill her. And Helen getting away and being the final girl. That's the movie I would have liked to have seen. Stop killing Sarah Michelle Gellar off in horror movies, people. I know that she survived The Grudge, but she didn't survive The Grudge 2. We love Cece in Scream 2. I loved the character. I don't think she should have survived in Scream 2. I thought her role was pretty, you want to be killed by Ghostface if you're going to be featured in Scream and not star in it. You want to have an epic death scene and an epic scene. And I think they gave her the screen time and everything that she deserved. And her death on screen on Scream 2 was good. So I think that was fine. But those are my top 5 characters in horror movies that I think should have survived. Let me know. Head on over to the Horror With Me podcast page or Facebook page and let me know if you agree with my top 5, who your top 5 are, and if you got the terrifying trivia question right. And that concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for coming and sitting and listening to me rant and rave about what I like and what I don't like about things in the horror universe and sharing your opinions with me. I really appreciate it. As always, hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Rate and comment what you like about the episode on whatever platform you're listening to. And you can also always get brand new and past episodes on thehorrorwithinme.com. And follow all the socials: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And that's it. All right, everybody. Stay safe, but more importantly, stay spooky.